It would be able to read your text messages, it would be able to listen into your telephone calls.
It's like a spy devices. It can catch around 1,200 numbers per minute.
We're just being infringed upon every step of the way. It's just another invasion of privacy.
So we're here at the Ecuadorian embassy where Julian Assange has been holed up for the past 3 years. The last few times I've been here I've observed some really strange signals coming from mobile phone towers. It's pumping out some weird shit.
Richie is a technology expert who works for global surveillance watchdog Privacy International. We're trying to detect a portable device that can spy on phones in the area.
So the fact that we're getting correct country codes and a wide variation in network codes from the same tower is really quite interesting.
But that suggests that it's trying to hoover up as many different network signals as possible.
Exactly. Our phones in our pockets would certainly be able to pick up signals from this.
The device that Richie's talking about is an IMSI catcher. It's a secret police surveillance tool that's used to monitor thousands of phones at a time. When it's switched on, it takes a record of any phone in the area and can intercept their messages and calls. In other Western countries, the authorities are open about their use of IMSI catchers, but in the UK, we don't know who's using them or why, so we're going in search of them across London.
We've heard that police are using IMSI catchers to keep track of large demonstrations, so we come to the middle of London to the biggest anti-austerity march in years to see if they're using the technology.
We met up with Richie at the protest.
How's it going?
His equipment can scan and detect IMSI catchers in the area.
So it's kind of like a sonar. If we're closer to it, it'll say on the software and it'll let us know whether or not we're hotter or colder.
Exactly.
IMSI catchers are hard to detect because they pretend to be mobile phone towers. Our scanner let us take a close look at all the towers in the area.
So what we found here is another tower that is a British tower, but doesn't appear to be tied to any given network. We hopefully will now try and move closer to the tower itself and move through the crowd and maybe set up in front of the crowd to see if we can see it move by us. Oh, there's 77 now has showed up.
There it is.
It's one of the strongest towers, not the strongest tower, but it is one of the strongest towers.
So it's back.
Seems to be.
So somewhere around us is Tower 77.
It'd be extremely useful to the police operating an IMSI catcher in the area, as they'd simply be able to hoover up the communications and listen in on phone calls and text messages and data without any real effort at all.
Our scanner had detected signs of an IMSI catcher moving through the protest, but we couldn't pinpoint it. We decided to ask the police.
I was wondering if you know what an IMSI catcher is, or an IMSI grabber, or a stingray?
Stingray?
Yeah.
Like a shark?
I was just wondering if any of you know what an IMSI catcher is? What's your answer to the question? Why won't you answer the question?
I can neither confirm or deny that.
So you have heard of it?
Wow, I haven't seen that. Oh, wow, okay.
Do you know what it is?
I can't confirm or deny.
Why can't you confirm or deny?
Because it's beyond my pay grade.
But you do know what it is. You've heard the name before.
Enjoy your afternoon, and you too.
Clearly, some of the officers knew what we were talking about. We issued 48 Freedom of Information requests to police forces all over the UK, but they all refused to give us a straight answer of whether they were using IMSI catchers. We wondered if IMSI catchers were being used in other parts of London.
All right, let's scan some towers.
Yeah, that one's very strong. But what we can see here from the signal strength from this both Vodafone and O2 towers are that we're pretty much on top of a cell phone tower.
They're really close
now.
to us, right?
They
So
are with the maximum signal strength possible.
down here, what we can see is the public entrance to Parliament. So down there, they've got scanners, they've got police officers, and we know that when we hold the phone just over here,
Out over the wall,
the signal is at its strongest, right? At the strongest it can possibly be, 47. So that means that the signal is almost certainly coming from this part of the building over here.
Whatever we found in Westminster, it wasn't public knowledge. The House of Commons told us there were no signal boosters stationed there.
Trying to get the authorities to speak to us on the record about surveillance has proved very difficult because there's a real lack of transparency. But there is one person who's challenging this culture of secrecy, and that's the MP, David Davis. We found strong indications of IMSI catchers in various locations around London. Do you think that's a cause for concern?
Well, yes, it is. I think IMSI catchers, by definition, hoover up. It's like a hoover, collect everything up. And so it's a matter of concern generally, and particularly if there's a lot of them in London, where vast numbers of people against whom there can be no suspicion and will be hoovered up in them.
What would you say to people who say that the storage of their data is something they don't need to worry about because they're not breaking the law?
Eventually somebody will misuse it. It won't necessarily be the government, it may be a fraudster finds it. And so what I don't want to see is that we've got all this apparatus in place, we can do nothing about it, and then it all goes wrong. What my job to do is to warn the public of what might go wrong so that they actually don't take this actually rather daft attitude of nothing to hide, nothing to fear.
We took David to the spot where we'd found signs of an IMSI catcher.
There was a very strong signal coming specifically from just this area here, which strongly suggested that there was a mobile phone base station or possibly an IMSI catcher in place right here.
I mean, I could think of a legitimate reason for it. You know, if you want, bear in mind the same sorts of signals come out from things designed to jam mobile phones, to prevent bombs going off, all that sort of thing. So there may be a reason. On the other hand, it's very close to Parliament. And so if it really is an IMSI catcher, it could actually read the phone of members of Parliament.
Members of Parliament aren't briefed on how IMSI catchers are used, and the police refuse to tell us on national security grounds. So we went to find the companies that sold them.
And now the latest releases, 2015.
When countries go shopping for surveillance tech, this is where they come. Millepol in Paris, one of the biggest state security expos in the world. There are hundreds of companies here who stand to make a lot of money from the deals they sign. We've come along to see what's on offer.
Exhibitors and visitors come to this Millepol exhibition. We try to match business meeting between exhibitors and visitors.
So the state representatives will meet somebody from the supplier, maybe a security supplier, and they'll go into one of these booths and cut a
use this
deal.
area to get to their business meeting.
I was just wondering if maybe you could tell me a little bit about your work and you're not allowed to speak to media. Oh, you don't do media. Is there anybody I could speak to here about? No? Okay, sure, thanks. Can you tell us at all about what your company does, or? No? Okay. All right.
Not everybody wanted to talk to us, but then we found what we were looking for.
Hi there, I'm Ben, I'm a reporter for Vice News. I was just wondering if you could maybe tell me a little bit about some of your equipment and some of the capabilities that you have here.
Okay, so the first one that we've got here is what we call story catch. It's a merging between the IMSI data and the video streams, meaning that if you have any scene with any criminal activity, we will gather the IMSI and IMEI data and we will merge it into the video file as a metadata. So it can be either in your pocket, in a car, in any device of this kind, which looks like an electrical distribution box. You have at the same time the camera and the place for the catcher and the timer.
So everyone on that street, it'll collect their phone IMSI number and deliver it to you, whoever's in shot of the video.
We've just introduced yesterday this new development.
Wow. Once a government or a law enforcement agency has bought it, then it's really up to them how they use it. There are all kinds of ways that they might decide to deploy it. That existing within their legal framework, obviously. I know that one of the things that people sometimes criticize about IMSI catchers is that sometimes innocent people are caught up by their use. Do you have any safeguards to prevent that from happening?
Well, as far as our job is to provide to the law enforcement agencies the technology to do their job. The way they use it depends on the regulation of their country.
Can you give me an idea of what kind of cost it would be on the market?
It's about 35,000 euro.
Is it available commercially as well? For specifically, I guess, these two items, which seem to be your sort of flagship items, or is it's purely?
No, there is a real commercial business for this. I mean, the tendency at the moment and the last day events show that we need to have this.
But for private investigators, I guess, or for private individuals?
Not private investigators. I don't think they can afford to pay these things. Plus, the use is really dedicated to governmental forces.
Yeah.
Using the IMSI data is something which is very touchy. So it's more for the investigators, official investigators.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us if you've ever sold anything to the UK before?
I cannot disclose, of course, anything about our customer, but well, we got very good relation with UK companies and probably with UK enforcement agencies.
We asked Philippe's colleague about the company's UK clients for their other equipment.
Birmingham, UK.
Birmingham in the UK is using
yes,
it. Right.
It's been used in Thames Valley Police, Oxford.
Wow.
Merseyside Police, Liverpool. Leicester Police.
It's very popular in the UK then.
Yeah, we have some good clients.
But there was something else that caught our attention at Millipol. Concern over a growing black market for surveillance tech they were providing.
How much of a concern is it for you and for other developers and manufacturers that there are companies in China that are also making this but are selling it to private individuals, not just to law enforcement?
It's a very big problem, I mean, because actually we got many, private businesses that they simply import from China and then resell to ordinary public, and they only put a note on their website that says selling this jammer is against the law, but they are not considering that also importing that kind of stuff and making it publicly available is actually against the law. I mean, law enforcement equipment does not tolerate any public advertising. We continuously research and develop new systems, and we try not to disclose too much information because that kind of information could be used not only to reverse engineer our systems, but also to find a way to fight against them. And we are providing the good guys with tactical advantage.
We wondered where the criminals really could get their hands on IMSI catchers. And what if we'd actually found one that didn't belong to the state? We decided to try and buy one.
So I've been talking to this guy who seems to be selling IMSI catchers pretty openly via an online marketplace. I sent him a few emails pretending to be a consultant acting for a wealthy client, and he's just sent me back 3 videos of his IMSI catcher working. Now, I haven't told him anything about my client or his business, so I could be anybody. A criminal trying to obtain private messages or financial information or medical records. He told us the IMSI catcher he wants to sell to us can give us location tracking, signal jamming, maybe even call and message interception.
We can switch on the power. Now you can see the power is switched on. Now we start the scanning work. We tap start.
It's $20,000, but we're not actually going to buy it. Instead, we're going to Skype him and see if he'll agree to the sale, knowing that we're not law enforcement.
I brought my editor along to stand in as my client.
Hi, is that Edward? Hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Will.
How are you? Hi there. I'm Will. Hello. This is my client, Kevin.
Hi. How are you?
May I ask? Obviously, I'm representing a private company, and I have a certain concern that you'll be sending something to Britain. Do you think that will get to me okay?
Yeah, we can because our company started many years ago in the business of manufacturing the mobile signal repeaters. Repeaters to boost the signal. It's a radio frequency equipment, so we claim it's a repeater.
Are you selling equipment to many other places around the world?
We worked first with Russia, yeah, and then Israel, and also some African countries and South America. That's no problem at all.
I just wanted you to reassure us that you would be able to make arrangements for us, because we're not police, we're not from the state.
You need to assure us that you will use it legally. Yeah. And we make arrangements according to your requirements. That's no problem.
Great. Yeah, I'm going to go back and talk to my client now, and then I'll be in touch with you over email. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great to speak to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We brought in Richie from Privacy International to show him what we'd found.
Where is he based?
He says he's based in Hong Kong.
But our device can catch the phone number, the phone number directly. It's like a spy devices. It can catch around 1,200 numbers per minute.
Bye-bye.
So he obviously knows the implications of these devices. And he obviously has at least some awareness of how they can be used, how they can be misused, and yet is still willing to sell to a registered company, private individuals, investigators. I mean, that's just... There obviously is a market, and there obviously is a willingness to supply private people with this capability.
And what does it mean when this kind of sophisticated surveillance technology is placed in the hands of ordinary people?
It becomes a free-for-all. This is at the whim of an individual who wants to turn it on at any moment in time and isn't accountable to anybody and can do whatever they want with it.
The surveillance tech industry is worth billions, and as fear of terrorism increases, business is booming.
How would you feel if you knew that the police were spying on your phone tonight, if they were tracking your location, that they were using a sophisticated piece of technology to do so?
It's all worrying because I'm here tonight to peacefully protest. The mosque is part of the, that's because of the way they treat us. I'm not here to cause any trouble. We're just being infringed upon every step of the way. It's getting worse and worse. The recent bills passing, they can keep our internet history for up to a year in case the police want to investigate. It's just another invasion of privacy.
Clearly, this equipment has a role to play in counter-terrorism, but its engineers can't stop it from being used for other things. And pushing back is a growing movement of citizens who don't want their privacy invaded by governments or anyone else.